How's it going, friends, and welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you live step by step on how I achieved my moss weathering on my Fairy Gannet. So a lot of people had asked how I did the moss weathering on the Gannet, so I thought I'd do a little simple video on how this process was done. As you can see, we don't need a lot of stuff for this. We've got two enamel paints that we'll be using, which is what are used on the Gannet. So we've got AK's dark streaky grime and AK's moss deposit. Now obviously there are other ones, but these are the ones that I've used. I personally find AK's enamels, I tend to find work better personally, but you know, we all have differences. But I always use AK's enamels because again, I just seem to find them work best for me. It's just one of those weird things. So enamel thinners, obviously. To be fair, we're not going to really need that much of this. Doing this process is more of anything going to be in this is going to be clean up. Generally, for the main part and on the wings, I didn't really need any of this. So we'll put that to the side for now. And just a couple of brushes. Realistically, we just want one brush for applying the enamel and then another one for blending. I'm going to do this exactly the same as I did it on the actual model. So I have a clear coat gloss-ish on this one for this. Now, it's not necessary, really, but for me, it's kind of like a save point for the work I've done previously. Also, if I do make a bit of a mess, I find it slightly easier clean up to get it off a gloss surface, because it kind of struggles to obviously stick to it as it would a matte surface. You can do it straight onto a matte surface. The only problem you're going to have again is if you want to try and backtrack what you've done, and you will also tend to find that the area will stain more and you may not get the same effect. So again, personally, in the way I do it, I start with a gloss coat because it's kind of like a save point. So then all we need to do to start this off is we start with the streaky grime and just basically put it over the model in the areas that we want covered. Now, with it being gloss, you may need to put a couple of extra coats down for this. Now, I think if I remember rightly on the actual model, I put 2 to 3 layers on this, but as this is not the same glossy layer as the model I did it on, it probably will stick a little bit better, so I might not have to put as many coats down as I had to in the first place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my dry rough brush. The rougher the better, the more bristles splayed out, the more we're going to get sort of a rough sort of pattern, if you like. And this is also going to tell us whether I need to do an extra layer or not. So all I'm doing is basically a stippling pattern over the area that we've already put paint down on. If you've got a reference photo to work off, this will help with sort of like patterns and the way the area is to look on the actual aircraft, which is what I did on mine. And yeah, it just gives you a bit more, you know, realism, I suppose, with it. Now, it's always good on occasion just to, I'm using my leg for this because I'm still about 5 years old, but use a towel or a cloth or something just to wipe off the excess, because of course there's still quite a lot of wet paint on. Now, the way this has gone, it doesn't seem that I'm going to need to put any another layer of this down, because again, like I said, this is not a proper gloss coat like I had on the actual model. What I'm also trying to do is feather some of the edges off so they're not too hard, because if you look at, you know, actual moss on these sort of things, they tend to be they don't, you know, you haven't got the hard edge to it, so you want to sort of blend those out and soften the edges up again to give a more natural appearance of the moss. What we can do, which is a tool I didn't think I was actually going to use, but we can also use something like a sponge just to help remove some of the excess as well if we've, you know, gone a bit too heavy, which I think I did, because as it says, this isn't as a glossy surface as I used before. So actually might need potentially another coat maybe of this. But again, it depends on how far we want this to be weathered, how much sort of moss deposit we want on the aircraft. So as we all know with enamels, if we want to reactivate it, we can use enamel thinners. So I think up here is possibly a little bit too harsh. So just with a dampened brush, just go over the area that I want to feather out a little bit more. And I'll come back here with my stippling brush and do the same again, just to feather it all out and remove any sort of hard lines that we don't want. Once we're happy with that, we will then come in with our moss deposits and then literally repeat the same process. Now, what we will do with this is we won't put quite as much, so obviously we've got a full covered area, we won't put as much of this on as we would have done previously. Again, you know, using reference photos is going to help a lot with this. And like I said, we're just not going to smother the entire area. We're just going to pick out a few bits and bobs, depending on, you know, where the aircraft's sat or what's sat over it, or, you know, there's a lot of variations of why moss will build up in certain areas more than others. So again, using reference photos for that will help. Now, I've not, literally this has been seconds that I've gone from this bit to this. Now, because obviously we've got fresh paint on there, it will react with the previous layer, and what we will do then obviously is blend it in. Again, exactly the same as we did before, and this will react with the previous layer, and of course it will mix it and darken it off. So it's a bit like a wet blend, if you like, for this part. And again, if we get a few bits that are a bit too stubborn, so I think we might be okay with this. Again, we can come in with some enamel thinners again, just to reactivate it, because this stuff actually does dry relatively quickly to a point, because of course it's still wet, if you like, because enamel, a bit like oil paint, doesn't always necessarily dry straight away. So we can come back in and reactivate the previous layers. What we can also do is we can, again, if we don't want to use thinners, because again we can potentially strip a lot of this off, we can come in again and just sort of fill in some of the blotchy bits, if we like, and do the same process. And that should fill in any sort of gap, unwanted gaps that we have, just like that. Now again, what we're going to want to do is realistically work in small areas at a time, because if you put too much of this down, you know, you're going to find that areas are drying too quickly and you're not going to be able to keep up with those areas. So work on small sections at a time to the point where you are happy with that section. And the last thing we can do with this is add a little bit more to it, a little sort of like texture, and that is load the brush up a bit and have something like a cocktail stick or anything sticky you like. And then all we need to do is just push the bristles down the side and do a little bit of speckling. Put those down as just examples. And we'll let that dry. Yeah. And this was sort of similar to the, you know, the little spots of moss and that you can sort of see out in the wild. So there you go, my friends. I hope that just shows how simple and easy it is to achieve these types of weathering. The thing is with these, it's just basically taking the plunge and just doing it. Now, when I did it originally on the Gannet, I wasn't overly sure on if it was going to really work or not. So sometimes it is just worth just throwing it out on the model and basically seeing what happens. Anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video. I want to say a massive thank you for you guys for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. I want to say a massive thank you to my channel members, Barney Mins and John Alex Scale Modelling, for your continued support on the channel. So anyway, guys, that's it for now. I hope you have enjoyed, and I'll catch you again soon.